we have some news about the LIV Golf and the PGA Tour merger. And rumor has it this is going to be announced like ASAP this week, it could be. But what we're going to talk about is what is probably going to be released and then what's to come. Here's what this is. I've taken all the things I've heard recently, as well as things I've heard over the last months, even years, couple years, based on what I've heard people saying that this is what LIV wants, this is what the PGA Tour wants, and I've taken all these things that I've collected over the time, and I put them all together. I laid them all out, and I'm like, okay, it's a giant puzzle, and you can't fit everything together. It doesn't all make sense. And things have even changed, so you got to throw some stuff out. Some stuff I've heard is very conspiracy theory. So for the most part, I've thrown that out. Even though some of those pieces kind of fit in and make sense, I'm like, I'm not going there. Like, it's too wild to even consider at this point. If they happen, they happen, but I don't need to be the one to say it's going to happen. I'm not saying all this stuff is going to happen. What I'm saying this is I've taken all the stuff I've heard and I'm putting it together in a way that makes it make sense. So this could happen in totality, or pieces of it could happen, or pieces could happen little by little, and it could, like a puzzle, all fit together over time. So don't take this as this is rock solid gold information. This is all the stuff I've heard and collected. So here is what we've heard. We know LIV and PGA Tour people have met. We know they met with Tiger and the other people from the Players Advisory Group on the PGA Tour. They met in the Bahamas, and they sat down. Every time Yasser Al-Rumayyan, the guy behind LIV who really runs the fund, he really has a way of talking people about, he shows them and talks to them about his vision of what he wants to accomplish. And it really changes a lot of people. So we know I've met the guy a couple times. I played some holes with him during a couple of the pro-ams. He's a really likable person in person. So that's as far as I know. On the golf course, it was just another dude having a good time. His caddy, bodyguard, whatever you call it, was laughing at him a little bit, giving him a hard time, ribbing him a little. So it just felt like another dude showed up and we were having a good time. So I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but here's some of the stuff I've heard. All right, we know they want to merge. How is that going to work out? LIV is not going anywhere. And the PGA Tour doesn't want to go anywhere, but it's been fragmented. Things are just all over the place. And to make golf the way everybody really kind of wants it is to get it back together. Right now, golf is like the PC version. It's open and it's all over the place. Whereas what they want is to make it more like a Mac where it's all contained. And and wrap it up and make it really enjoyable to everybody. And right now it's kind of piecemeal. We like pieces of LIV, we like pieces of PGA Tour. How can we get it all together? So this is going to slowly roll out. I think they're going to announce certain things right away, and then it will continue to roll out. So right now, this is what it's kind of the hierarchy of the tours are going to look like. You have, let's say, the Korn Ferry Tour at the lowest level for now. That's what we'll call that the basement. Then the next up level would be your PGA Tour. And then the DP World Tour and LIV are kind of on that playing field right there. LIV, I would say, would be a little higher up the food chain than that, but just a little bit. Then the next level, we're going to have the PGA Tour signature events. And what we don't have are the World Golf Championships, where all the best players in the world play together. That we don't have that. That is now reserved for the next and highest level, which would be the major championships. Included in that would be the Players' Championship at Sawgrass. And that's really where our tours are currently. What they want to do is this. They want to have the best players in the world competing against each other more often, and in a way where it's the LIV players and the PGA Tour players. That would kind of, where do they do that, right? What tour do they do that? It's not going to be the Korn Ferry Tour, obviously. It's not going to be your normal PGA Tour events either. So that's going to be reserved for PGA Tour players, people with their PGA Tour card. Then the DP World Tour, they're going to keep the status quo there. And LIV Tour, that's going to change a little bit. And then you're going to have the PGA Tour signature events. Pebble Beach, Quail Hollow, the ones, the elevated events. This is where they're going to allow LIV golf players to play in these events. Okay, so how is this fair? We'll get to that, because you got LIV golf players playing on PGA Tour events. Are PGA Tour players going to play on LIV events? Yes, they are. And this is what is affecting so many players on the PGA Tour, which we'll get into here in a second, like Justin Thomas and Ricky Fowler and Jordan Spieth. Like, why are these guys playing so poorly? Even Victor Hovland lately. It's because of all of this. That's why they can't. There's too much of this going on. And from what I've heard, there's a reason why they might be playing poorly. And it's because of these crossovers and how the LIV Golf League will be structured that includes the PGA Tour players. Little hint, sneak peek here is these players that I mentioned don't get what they would want over here, and so it's affecting them mentally on the golf course. So there's pressure, and they can't handle it. From what I've heard, right? I'm not saying this is it, but this is what I have heard. And I'm just laying it out there because it all pieces together to kind of make a lot of sense. So you got the signature events where some of the LIV players can go over. So LIV will have a ranking system on their own where the certain top so many players will be able to earn status in these particular elevated signature events. But in order to keep that, they're going to have to play, right? Because they want the best players playing against each other more often. This will solve the LIV Golf Tour world ranking point system. This is why this thing's so complicated, because you got that governing body not cooperating and giving LIV the ranking points, and you're decimating the PGA Tour by sucking all the players out of it going to LIV, and it's just become a hot mess. So they got to piece all these things together. This is why this merger is so incredibly complicated. So, all right, you got LIV going over to these signature events. Then you've got, at those signature events, that's how they're going to earn their world ranking points to qualify for the major championships. They're also working with the major championship governing bodies, because those are separate from the PGA Tour, except the Players' Championship. That is run by the PGA Tour. That's the only thing the PGA Tour actually runs. They don't run any of the other tournaments. They kind of coordinate them. They actually run the Players' Championship. So now you got to talk with the USGA, the RNA, and the PGA of America to get them to say, okay, we got to get the LIV guys, the top guys, in there. So one way is a number of LIV players will be earning world ranking points in those PGA Tour signature events. And then they'll also be earning their own ranking points on LIV Golf. So let's say the top X5 players, 10, whatever it is that they decide, so many players will have status in these major championships, including, this is why they're working with PGA Tour, including the Players' Championship. And then that solves the problem. There'll be more players playing on the PGA Tour signature events from LIV than are, let's say, qualifying spots available on LIV Golf. So let's say LIV Golf has 5 qualifying spots for the top 5 players get to play in the majors, including the Players' Championship. But 20 players from LIV get to play in these particular signature events, which will be a little bit larger and allow the players to cross over. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So how do the PGA Tour players that were loyal sticking with the PGA Tour and not go to LIV. How do they get compensated? Here's how they get compensated. They get to play in LIV tournaments. They get like access to being part of a team. This is interesting. So right now we have 13 teams. And there was 12. Now we have 13. We have a couple wild cards. So there's like 54 players that play. They can grow that and still keep their format, keep their shotgun, keep everything the way it is. They can grow that probably up to 18 teams. That gets a little crowded at that point. But let's say they go from 13 to 16 teams. That would be fine. And so you got 13, 14, you got 3 more teams. Let's say you got 3 or 4 more teams. Then you get captain. Who's going to captain those teams? Well, here's who's going to captain them. Tiger Woods, he gets a team, plus hundreds of millions of dollars. But nonetheless, what's more valuable than that is owning a team. So from what I've heard, Tiger is getting a team. He'll most likely be a non-playing team captain, general manager, owner. So he has ownership of a team. Same goes for Rory McIlroy, although Rory would play. And he would also have his team. This is why some of the players like Justin Thomas, Ricky Fowler, and Jordan Spieth aren't playing very well. And because they don't get a team. They can be on a team, but they don't get a team. They don't get any ownership. They can, if Tiger wants to give them ownership, he could give them part ownership of his team, but they don't get their own team. They don't get their own ownership, but they do get an opportunity to earn a lot of money by winning on LIV because the purses are so dang high. So that's why they're not playing well, because they're not happy. This is what I've heard. I know this is kind of borderline conspiracy theory, but it still fits in to all the pieces. Like, hey, you get to be on a team. You get to be either on Tiger's team, you get to be on Rory's team, and then there's probably another PGA Tour player that would own a team, or it would be non-owned, but 4 other players get to be part of a team to, be compensated for being loyal to the PGA Tour during the time that LIV was coming around. So that's interesting because now you've got total crossover. The only thing that really doesn't fit that I think could and probably will happen that I've also heard is a Ryder Cup style format between the PGA Tour and LIV Golf. Then that's a whole nother conundrum that you have to figure out. Like, if you play here, which one are you really a part of if you're crossing over this way and that way? And this is why there's just, that could take some time. That might be further down the road, but that would be something that would also be interesting. Nonetheless, it's going to be an interesting time. I don't suspect that they come out and throw all this out all at once. As a matter of fact, they're most likely just going to come out and drip a few little things out there. But we know this. They want the best players, all the best players in the world, competing against each other at guaranteed events. You want that more than 4 or 5, more than 4. Right now it's 4, the majors, and it's not even all the best because it's probably the best players because you got the ones that qualify from LIV are still among the best players in the world. So they want all of them there, all the ones that you want to see. So they want that more than 4 times. So you add the Players' Championship, that's 5. They want at least 10. So they want at least 5 more. So I'm guessing some of those signature events will not be signature events, but will transition back over to what used to be World Golf Championship events. They'll now be called something else, where they're elevated events. They're signature plus events, let's say, because you've got these best players. So they want to make sure that you got the major championships and more signature events where the best players are competing against each other. Plus, LIV wants a number of those guys over there to compete even more often at those events. So there could be also, be ready for this, crossover. Some of the signature events will be PGA Tour events, or Signature Plus events, and some of them will be LIV Golf events. So that's kind of how all of this could potentially work itself out. That's how it all kind of makes sense. Let me know your thoughts. There's a lot going on, but don't be surprised if a lot of this stuff starts leaking out this week. It's going to be an interesting time. My sources have told me that the majority of the information that's going to come out will happen after the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, number dos. So that's where I kind of land with that. But you let me know. You let me know if you've heard anything, what your thoughts are. But that's what I've heard, and I wanted to report it to you. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm saying this is the way it kind of all fits together and makes a lot of sense and could potentially work. It will take some time for the masses to warm up to it, but it's something to consider.